When you type in toxic meaning in Google, you get over 272 million results in less than a half second. Now, we're not going through all those 272 million results. The first thing you see here is the word toxic, and that is an adjective, and it means poisonous. For example, the dumping of toxic waste. And these are synonyms, and the synonyms are poisonous, venomous, virulent, noxious, dangerous, destructive, harmful, unsafe, malignant, injurious, pestilential, pernicious, environmentally unfriendly, and there are more synonyms to it. And in the financial world, it has to do with debt. And you also have poisonous substances, which are related to that word toxic. And when you go to the Urban Dictionary, so where it's documented how people use it in daily life, it comes down to the following: an individual that's considered dangerous or unpleasant. Now, when you go to the Cambridge Dictionary, toxic simply means poisonous, and in the informal setting means something is very unpleasant or unacceptable. Or it can also be something cause you a lot of harm and unhappiness over a long period of time. And here you also have the use of toxic in business English. For example, very unpleasant or unacceptable in some sense is the atmosphere at work had become positively toxic. But it's actually a contradiction, but okay. So toxic simply means that something is dangerous for you in the long run. And that is what I want you to remember, in the long run. So that means that on the short term, you may not experience the danger. The danger comes after a while. For example, if you take a toxic medicine or you take some toxic substance, or let's say someone is doing heroin, someone is a heroin addict. At the moment they are injecting the heroin, they experience intense relief, and it's that intense relief thereafter. But after a while, in the long run, that heroin injection will work against them, because now they will crave the relief over and over again, and the heroin will destroy their body. So that's what toxic is. In the long run, it works against you, but on the short term, you may experience some short-lived benefit from it. So, okay, I'm going to show one more definition. This is from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Well, definition of toxic: toxic waste, a toxic radioactive gas, an insecticide highly toxic to birds. Refusal means containing or being poisonous material, especially when capable of causing death or serious debilitation. Exhibiting symptoms of infection or toxicosis. The patient has become toxic 2 days later. You see here, on the long run. Extremely harsh, malicious, or harmful. Toxic sarcasm, that's more in social setting. Relating to or being an asset that has lost so much value that it cannot be sold on the market. So in the financial world, it simply means that if you purchase a house, for example, or you have a business, but now it doesn't have much value anymore, but it's become a liability onto you. So in all contexts, toxic implies that something is harmful to you in the long run. So now, there's this term, toxic people, that's in usage. Not only on the internet, also in daily life. And I want to talk about this term, toxic people. What is a toxic individual? I'm not going into the subjective expectations of commoners, because commoners tends to label everyone as toxic that doesn't match their expectations, because commoners tend to be self-focused. I want to discuss this term, toxic people, in a Christ-centered perspective. Now, as mentioned before, toxic means that something is harmful to you in the long run. So a toxic individual is an individual who sooner or later will cause harm to you. That doesn't mean that the individual delivers harm instantly. Because if someone would carry harm with them openly, you would avoid them. You wouldn't be comfortable around them. What makes someone toxic is that when they appear, they appear to be the opposite of what they will deliver. For example, you may get a new job, and the boss appears to be reasonable, calm, and honorable in his conduct towards other people. And your first days at work, everyone smiles with you, so everyone says hi to you. So it appears to be a healthy climate. So only after you've been working there for over a year that you realize that you have a lot of headaches, that you have to see the doctor, you find out that you've become depressed, and then you realize it's due to the work environment that you operate in. And it's then you realize that that work environment was toxic. The reason it was toxic is because when you appeared there, it appeared to be the opposite. It appeared to be a beneficial environment. And you were then trapped by this beneficial appearance. But it was just an appearance. It was not what it really was. So when you held on to this beneficial appearance of the job, you didn't notice when the dysfunction appeared. Now, dysfunction happens everywhere, okay? So you just deal with dysfunction. But because there was this impression that the work environment was healthy, when dysfunction appeared, you didn't notice it. And next next came the malfunction, and of the malfunction came the destruction. You first have a dysfunction, then a malfunction, and then a destruction. If you notice the dysfunction, that means you could either get out or you can face what's going on to look for a solution. When it turns into a malfunction, it becomes a bit more difficult, because now it is more complicated. And if it has passed from malfunction to destruction, you need to get out of there. Unfortunately, too often people, including believers, which I'm addressing believers now, too often believers don't notice the toxicity of something or someone until destruction manifests. And it's when destruction manifests that they realize, hold on a minute, something's wrong here. And now they want to figure out what's going on. But then it's way too late. Now, how come believers often get involved with toxic people? First of all, pagan Christianity taught believers that we ought to embrace and love toxic people. Now, don't get me wrong. We walk in love towards everyone, including those that have ill intentions towards us. But that does not imply that we embrace their danger, their demons, and their destruction. First of all, we don't embrace them in a sense that we welcome them into our homes, that we welcome them into our lives. We don't do that. Why? Because they are in the negative. So to embrace them would mean we embrace Satan himself. Because with their negativity comes demons. And where demons are, you have Satan's rule. So we walk in love towards everyone. That's God's command, to love our neighbor as ourselves. However, we cannot walk in love with everyone Because first of all, that's not possible, because to walk in love with someone means that the other individual is also operating in love. But if you're not operating in love, you can't walk in love with them. For example, you can travel with someone if someone is heading towards a similar destination. If you're catching a plane from Amsterdam to Panama, but you need to be in Honduras or in Guatemala, let's say you have someone else who's also traveling towards Latin America, but this individual needs to transfer to another location. They may not have to go to Guatemala or Honduras, but they may need to go to, let me say, Bolivia, but they are transferring to Panama. Now, between Amsterdam and Panama, you can travel with them because they are heading in the same direction. The same it is in daily life. You can't walk with someone unless they're heading in the same direction. So there must be an agreement over there. Because someone's on the same plane as you, traveling from Amsterdam to Panama, they have an agreement that they're heading towards Panama. Now, after arriving in Panama, you may go separate ways, but between Amsterdam and Panama, there's a common agreement. And because you're on an airplane, you've agreed to comply with the safety regulations of the airline you're flying with. So traveling with someone is only possible if you're heading in the same direction. And that same direction is a common agreement. So you cannot walk in love with someone who is not in line with the love of God. You can only have a loving attitude towards them, but you can't walk in that attitude with them unless they repent and also align themselves with Christ. So this BS that pagan Christianity taught believers that we need to embrace and welcome toxic people into our lives, forget about it. You can't love the toxicity out of them. Now, when you walk in love, you will have a powerful impact on people. And there are people that will find healing through your influence. That's true. But not that you, by your own strength and knowledge, can love the toxicity out of folks, or you can love the darkness and the hate out of people. Forget about it. It's not going to happen. Okay? It's not. There are some people that will find healing through your influence. And with such people, you can enforce, you can enforce mercy, kindness, and all of that. Because power is meant to enforce something in reality. But there are people who are just pathological and self-destructive. Or pathologically self-destructive, if you want to label it. Now, a pathological and self-destructive individual is an individual who has decided that it's better to self-destruct than to surrender their claims. So they're quite proud. And that's what a narcissist is. It's an individual that embraces self-destruction because they don't want to let go of their expectations. They don't want to be challenged. Now, such an individual, any enforcement of the good will be perceived by them as an invasion, as an insult. Even though they are the ones that are spreading filth on the earth, they never want to look at themselves, they never want to examine themselves, and they especially will not comply with justice. Now, what do you do with such an individual? You can pray for them at a distance if you want, until the Spirit tells you not to pray for them anymore. But you cannot enforce the good on them for their benefit. You can enforce the good on the environment. That means you're not enforcing on them specifically, but because they are pathologically envious, they will perceive you walking in the good as an attack on them. Because they operate in darkness and they expect you to be in that same darkness, so they are at ease. So they are miserable, and that misery is self-caused, and due to their obsessive self-focus, they can't get out of misery, so now they want others to be in their misery for them to be at ease. So if you don't comply with their misery at your own expense, they are not good with you. So such folks, you can't love the hate out of them, because that hate is caused by themselves and is focused on themselves because they're obsessively self-focused. So that is what a toxic individual is. It's someone who has an obsessive self-focus, and due to this obsessive self-focus, they will scam you just to get into your life. How they will scam you? It depends. Some come with flatter, others come with harshness, in the sense that they are very direct in what they think, because they know that in society this direct aggression is perceived as honesty. So some will come with that. Some will come in the name of the Lord. It depends how they do it. But folks who have an obsessive self-focus, they will scam you just to be involved with you. Why? Because they are miserable and they want supply to relieve that misery. They don't seek deliverance from that misery, because that misery comes from their own self-obsession. And they have no intention of giving up that self-obsession. They don't want to acknowledge that they are vulnerable creatures and that they need to operate with others within this vulnerability. They don't want to accept vulnerability as part of their life and as part of being human. So actually, they are rejecting and refusing their own humanity. So if they are rejecting and refusing their own humanity, don't expect them to be humane towards you. That's why such people lack empathy. That's why they can just throw you away like filthy trash and never look back at you, even though you were married to them, even though you spent a lot of time with them, even though 2 days earlier you meant the world onto them. Well, actually, that's the problem. You meant the world to them, because it's self-focused, it's all about them. Such people you can label toxic. Not because you trust in the label, but the label describes what the type of quality they will bring to you. It describes the type of quality of people they are. Now, they can change, they can receive Christ and become better, but don't wait until they receive Christ. I'm not telling you to just, let me say it like this. You have people, I've explained this before quite often, you have people that need help. You have folks who need serious help. And with such folks, you need to endure when you are reaching out to them. Too often we expect people to just embrace us and jump on us with joy, to thank us when we come with a solution. Don't do that when someone has scars, especially psychological scars. Don't expect them to be cleansed within a second. Don't expect them to turn from a murmuring individual to someone that's rejoicing, praising the Lord within a day. They need to be delivered and they need to process things. And some folks need time to process things. Not everyone processes things in the same way or with the same speed. And with some people, you need to keep your distance so they will have space to process things. Some people are slow learners. You need to remember that also. But those are people that need help. Those are people that need to be rescued. That's one category of people. The other category of people are the people you should avoid. Because those are the people who have a problem for every solution. And I'm not being cliche here. I'm just telling you as it is. The second category are the people you need to be rescued from. So you have people that need to be rescued. And eventually those people will recognize that they need to be rescued and they will grasp to whatever help they receive. Often when they realize that it's serious, they will be the ones reaching out for help. And then you have people that will pretend to want help, pretend to want deliverance, but it's only to drain others of their sympathy. And such people are dangerous. They are what you can consider toxic people. Don't call everyone toxic just because they malfunction or they have a dysfunction. Someone is toxic when they are dangerous. And what makes someone dangerous is the fact that they never want to examine themselves. Just think about it. Someone that never wants to examine themselves can never discover if they are on the right track or not. Let's say I'm driving a car. Okay? And I'm heading somewhere. But let's say I never look on my TomTom or my navigation device. What's going to happen? I'll get lost. I know where I am. And let's say that an individual, not only will they refuse to look on their TomTom or their navigation device, they also refuse to adhere to the warning signs on the road. It can be that there is a road that's quite dangerous to travel upon, whether by foot or by vehicle, because the road is not well maintained and it leads to a valley. So the authorities they shut down that road and they place a warning signal, dead end. But let's say you have someone that's driving a car and he decides, man, I love the scenery of this road. And because he's self-focused, he just wants to enjoy the scenery. He doesn't look around him. He doesn't see the warning sign, do not cross, danger, dead end. He doesn't see the warning signs, the multiple warning signs that authorities place there. The authorities don't try to control him. The authorities are just making plain, this road is dangerous, don't travel upon it. Let's say the individual goes ahead anyway. What will happen? He'll end up in a very bad situation. Now, did he end up in that bad situation because he didn't know any better? Did he end up in a situation because it was inevitable? No. Well, actually, it was inevitable in one sense, but that inevitability didn't have to be inevitable. He ended up in a dangerous situation because he refused to pay attention. When you're driving a car, you should pay attention to what's around you, so you will notice warning signs. Or maybe you're on a road that has no warning signs, but there can still be danger on the road. Maybe there's a drunk driver right behind you, and he is heading towards your car. And because you pay attention, you look into the mirrors, you can see, oh, I need to get out of this road for a moment because there's a drunk driver here, and this situation will get out of hand. So even on a quote-unquote safe road, you need to pay attention. Now, I'm using this parable of driving a car to illustrate to you how toxic people are. Their self-focus blinds them from obvious red flags. Their self-focus blinds them from examining themselves. Their self-focus hinders them from empathizing with others. And eventually, they're so addicted to seeking relief from the tensions caused by the self-focus that they don't even want to consider that it's their own self-focus that's causing all those tensions. So they're operating without empathy. And the moment they've reached a state that they're operating without empathy for a long period of time, often there is no turning back for them. Unless Christ intervenes. And Christ will not always intervene. So know what a toxic individual is. Don't just label everyone toxic. Look at the situation. Look at the context. If someone needs help, then you pray for them, you examine the situation, and you give them space to recover. Okay? Don't try to control their healing process because that's not possible. That's something folks also need to unlearn. But if someone does not belong to the category of needy, but they belong to the greedy category. That means they are people you need to be delivered from. Then they're toxic, and then you take action for your own safety. That's not being selfish, just being realistic. Okay? So, just realize that toxic people are often also people that will refuse genuine help. Now, you have narcissistic help from people who don't actually care about your interests. It's all about them feeling good about themselves. So you may have a narcissistic parent that is reaching out to you in a financial situation, but it's only so that they can later boost their ego at your expense by talking down on you with other people. And as a grown child, you may know your toxic parent and you realize, no, not going to happen. Even though you are in need and the parent offers a hand, when you see that the motive is narcissistic, or you see that the motive of the individual is not sincere, or you see that the help that you will receive is a trap, then you can and you should legitimately say no. Not because you are unthankful, not because you are proud nor arrogant, it's because you realize that this is a trap. But then you have genuine help of people who genuinely are concerned about you. And even then, you need to be alert. Just because someone is genuinely interested in your well-being doesn't mean they have the knowledge nor the insight to assist you. If someone is conditioned to please society at all costs, then eventually such an individual can be used against you, even though they are empathic. They can be empathic, good people, but if they are not in line with Christ, who is the good, predators can use them against you. So even people with a genuine heart need to watch out for, because they can be used. I'm talking about genuine help that's objectively good for them, without any strings attached. Toxic people will always refuse genuine help from others, even though as a human being, it's natural that you receive help from others because you're not God. You can't do everything. Toxic people do not want to participate in solutions, even though they may pretend to. Toxic people want to dump all issues and frustrations at you and you deal with it. That's why this thing in the world that they call honesty, you have genuine honesty in which people examine themselves and they look for solutions and safety, both for them and those around them. That's real honesty. But then you also have this cultural thing called honesty, when people just say what they think because it's the so-called keeping it real. That's also toxic, because what do those people reveal? They reveal that they don't care about the well-being nor the interests of others. When they're not interested in something, or when something doesn't refer onto them, it doesn't matter. So the only thing that matters is them. So when they're upset, they show it. When they can't stand someone, they dump it. They don't think that the individual they have issues against also have people around them. They don't care that he's an individual also created by God, for whom Christ died. They don't care about any of that. It's all about them. So people that always speak their mind without considering the consequences for them and nor for others, or people who refuse to examine their opinions and where they stand, such people are toxic also because they don't want to comply with solutions, because solutions also imply that you have to comply with it for it to work. And that means that everything that's a hinder to solution needs to go. But toxic people, they don't want to do that. They just want to preserve their expectations at all costs, often at their own expense. That's how dangerous they are. They are willing to preserve their own expectations, even if those expectations are harmful unto themselves. Look, recognize toxicity for what it is. Don't call everything toxic that does not please you, or that doesn't make you happy. When you recognize someone is toxic, you do what you have to do. Lower contact, and if needed, you break all contact. There is no other way around such people. Lower contact, and if necessary, break all contact. Because just like I said before, they have a problem for every solution. They refuse to embrace solutions. They even refuse to see solutions, even solution is right in their face. Why? Because solutions require justice. Justice means compliance and giving up dysfunction, malfunction, and it requires effort on their behalf. And the most important thing, it means need to give up that obsessive self-focus of theirs. But to give up that obsessive self-focus means need to embrace and acknowledge their own vulnerability and that they don't have control. They are addicted to this sense of control. That's why they are obsessively self-focused. That's why they will refuse every solution and they will scam you just to dump the toxic, just to dump the waste energy that this negative mindset of theirs generates. So eventually, they want you for two things. As a punching bag to dump their frustrations, so as a target of violence, or as their victim, or as a supply to feel good about themselves. So you're either cocaine or you are a bin. Or as say in American English, a trash can. So, keep agreeing with Christ and be at peace.